Hello and welcome to 18th Century Cooking. My name is Ryan Kerr. Today we are making almond flour to make these little almond cheesecakes that just could not be any cuter. It's going to taste really good. I'm really excited about this one. Thank you for joining me as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century. In the 18th century, almond is a very popular ingredient, especially in desserts, but you see it's kind of nuts. You see a lot of pickled almonds, you see candied almonds, you see a lot of almond flour dishes, and we haven't done a ton of that on the channel, just a little bit. I was flipping through the cookbook and I saw this, and one thing that I really love is a very good almond flavor. And the problem with using like an almond extract or a fake almond flavor is that you can smell it. You can spot it from a mile away. It's not hard to get a really great natural almond taste in your desserts, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. This recipe is great for keto if you replace the sugar with something like stevia or any kind of sugar replacement. It's also a really good gluten-free dessert, so I think that you guys will really like it. Let's get into the recipe. So this recipe for almond cheesecakes comes out of Cookery and Pastry by Mrs. Susanna MacGyver. It's an interesting book. I don't think we've used it a ton on the channel. I personally haven't, but there's a lot of really neat stuff in here. To make almond cheesecakes, blanch and beat half a pound of almonds. Wet them with a little brandy while you are beating them. Cast 6 eggs, keeping out 4 of the whites, with fine sugar, and cast all together with the almonds. Season them with the grate of lemons or oranges. Put in 6 ounces of oiled fresh butter and mix all well together. Put them in the petty pans and fire them in the oven. It's that simple. The process is really good, but the thing that we have to do to get this started is we have to turn this into this. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. First, you're going to get your water on the burner and get it boiling. Once it's boiling, you're going to dump your almonds into the boiling water, and this called for a half a pound, so enough water just to make sure that they're covered. Let them boil for a minute. Take them out, and once they're out, you want to cool them down. So you're going to strain off the water, cool them down with some nice cold water to try to stop the cooking, because you don't want them to get soggy, and if they overboil, they're going to get soggy. And then now, you're just pinching the skin and popping the almond out. And once you're done with this, you're ready to go. We're just going to pulverize these almonds and turn them into almond flour. It's that simple. I was talking to some friends about making this recipe, and they were just kind of like, oh wow, you're going to blanch almonds and make almond paste? And I was like, well, essentially, look at that. And they were kind of like, oh wow, that sounds difficult. And it's not difficult at all, but I think it is one of those things that people haven't done, so they're kind of nervous about doing. And I want to go ahead and tell you right now, there's nothing difficult about this. So I finished the blanch on these almonds, gave them their cool water bath, and removed the skin. Then I just gave them a nice chop to make them break up a little bit. And now it's just time to wet them with a little brandy and pulverize the heck out of them. I'm going to be at this for a while. If you're making this at home and you're not trying to strictly go 18th century on this, a food processor is going to come in really handy for you right now. If you do go that route, you're going to want to make sure to put a little bit of powdered sugar in with them as you pulverize them, and that's going to help it from turning into almond butter. And don't go too far. You don't want to over process. All right, I've got my almonds pulverized now, and let me tell you, if you are going to do this by mashing and chopping, it's a rotation. You're gonna chop, you're gonna mash, you get frustrated because your mashing's not going as quickly as you want it to, and then you'll chop some more. I added some sugar along the way because I got a little brandy heavy, so I wanted to soak up some of that brandy. But it's a nice consistency right now, and it's almost like a paste. I think you can you can even ball it if you want to. So now we're at the point in this recipe where we're going to add our wet ingredients and our sugar. So we've got our 2 whole eggs in there, and now it calls for 4 egg yolks, casting off the whites. If you haven't done that before, it's really easy. You just crack your egg, and then you've got 2 shell halves, and you're going to alternate the yolk in between the shell halves, just like this. while you discard the whites, and then it's just the yolk and you dump it in. We've got our eggs incorporated here. Now it's time to add a little bit of sugar. And like I said, I added sugar as I was mashing up the almonds, but it still needs some more. I'm using powdered sugar. It says fine sugar. You could use any kind of fine sugar that you want to, but I wanted this to be really smooth, and so I decided to go with powdered sugar. I don't know what to tell you as far as the sugar goes. In my experiments, I added about 1.5 cups of sugar. Okay, so this is looking really fantastic. I'm really excited about this mixture. I think it's got a good consistency. My take on the lemon zest is not to go too heavy-handed with it. After all, this is an almond cheesecake, not a lemon cheesecake. There are plenty of recipes for lemon cheesecakes. I want the almonds to be the star of the show here. Now, it calls for fresh oiled butter, and that is ghee. That's what they're talking about. So I've got 6 ounces of ghee here. That's going to go in right now. And that is going to make this really rich. So I think that the finished product here is going to have some crazy complex flavors. You're going to have the aromatic of the lemon zest, and the sugar's going to come through and bump that almond up. And then you're going to have this richness and this body to go along with it. So I think it's shaping up to be quite a dish. I really don't know how long these are going to bake for because they're such small vessels. I'm going to play with it. So once I get them back, I will let you know what worked. But as of right now, just keep an eye on your oven, and I'm going to do the same, and we'll see what happens. We have beautiful cheesecakes out of the oven. The best thing that I can tell you about this is to bake them at 350 and keep an eye on them. You want this nice golden color right around the edge, and you just want to make sure that the center is set. You don't want to dip in there and just have a batter. And now it's kind of tricky because these are meant to have a texture that is kind of gooey. That's why all that ghee is in there and all that egg fat. But you do want it to be set up. So if you can do this to the top and your finger's not going through, you're probably good to go. But you definitely want those golden, crispy edges. If I've learned anything in my tenure at Townsends about cheesecakes in the 18th century, they are not talking about what we think of as cheesecakes. They're just going for that creamy texture. So it's not talking about using cheese, it's talking about the texture. And these, if they have the right texture, if we've done this correctly, they will have a crust all around the exterior, including the top, which it sounds like it does, and the center will be ooey gooey. And so I'm going to try to show that best I can. Yeah, see, that spoon just goes around, and look at that. There's a crust right on top, and then there's this buttery, ooey gooey goodness right underneath. Oh, that's good. Okay, so what's going on here is you've got that little bit of crunch, just the perfect amount of texture, and then that soft, buttery, gooey filling, which is just the batter. But it's interesting because you've got this full body egg yolk and butter fat thing going on that makes this feel substantial. And at the top, just kind of dancing around on your taste buds, you've got the combination of that sugar with almond. So it's very aromatic, and then the citrus right on top of that. It's just like, it's having a party, and it's having a good old time, and I love it. This is fantastic.